Biglang sumabog ang isang food stall sa Shanxi, China.
May nakaligtas kaya mga mamimili mula sa pagsabog dito sa palaking to. Ang detalye po ng insidente, ibabahagi natin maya-maya. Magandang gabi, ako po si Ricky Mathay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Huwebes.
Estados Unidos muling ipinahayag ang suporta para sa Pilipinas matapos ang helicopter incident sa Bajo de Masinloc.
Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. nais palalimin ang kaugnayan ng Pilipinas at Czech Republic.
Pangulong Donald Trump inaasahang bibisitahin ni Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Sao Paulo State sa Brazil nagdeklara ng health emergency dahil sa dengue outbreak.
At ating silipin ang inilabas na sariling quantum computing chip ng Microsoft. Inihayag ng Estados Unidos ang suporta nito sa Pilipinas matapos ang ginawang reckless maneuver ng isang Chinese helicopter laban sa Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources o BFAR aircraft habang nasa airspace ito ng Bajo de Masinloc.
Tinawag naman ng State Department ng United States ang ikinilos ng China na isang threat to navigation and overflight in the West Philippine Sea. Noong Martes nang magsagawa ng Maritime Domain Awareness Flight ang BFAR aircraft ay binuntutan ito ng helicopter ng China. Iginiit ng Washington na nang himasok ang People's Liberation Army Navy ng China sa Maritime Air Operation ng Pilipinas. Nanawagan din ng Estados Unidos sa China na itigil na nilang agresibong kilos nito at pag-usapan na lamang ang pagtatalo ng mapayapa alinsunod sa itinakda ng international law. Samantala, binigyan din ng US ang umiiral na 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty sa pagitan ng Pilipinas at Estados Unidos at ipinaalala sa China na handa silang tumulong sa Pilipinas sakaling may anumang armadong pag-atake sa kanilang kaalyadong bansa.
Tinanggap ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. sa Malacanang si Czech Republic Defense Minister Jana Černochová kung saan ay nag-usap ang dalawa para palalimin pa ang ugnayan ng Pilipinas at Czech. Sa naging pag-uusap ni PBBM at ni Černochová ay muling inulit ng Pangulo ang commitment ng kanyang administrasyon para patatagin ang bilateral relations ito sa Czech Republic. Naniniwala kasi si Pangulong Marcos Jr. na marami pang aspeto ang maaaring pagkasunduan sa pagitan ng dalawang bansa. Sinabi rin ni Pangulong Marcos na mahalaga ang pagbisita ng Defense Chief dahil isang patunay ito na nagpapatuloy ang magandang ugnayan ng dalawang bansa at inaasahang mas lalago pa ito sa mga susunod na panahon.
5 mangingisda ang nasagip ng Philippine Coast Guard o PCG sa paligid ng karagatan ng Spratly Islands sa West Philippine Sea o WPS. Ayon sa PCG, sinalpok ng di pa natutukoy na sasakyang pandagat ang FBCA Prince Elmo II na sinakyan ng 8 mangingisdang Pinoy noong Enero 30 sa bahagi ng Lubang Island. Pero noong Pebrero 16 lamang nailigtas ang 5 mangingisdang Pilipino habang nawawala pa rin ang 3 nilang kasamahan. Sinabi ng PCG, nakikipag-coordinate sa kanilang ahensya ang mga tauhan ng Vietnamese cargo vessel na MV Dong para mailigtas ang mga na-stranded na mga Pilipino. Binanggit naman ni CG Lieutenant Commander Michael John Encina na ang 5 mangingisda ay nakasurvive dahil sa pagkain ng isda at algae. Sumailalim din anya ang grupo sa isang medical briefing.
Inanunsyo ng PhilHealth na sakop na nito ang lahat ng outpatient emergency cases sa mga accredited level 1 to 3 hospitals sa buong Pilipinas. Ibig pong sabihin, kung sakaling magkakaroon ng emergency medical case ang isang Pilipino at kailangan magpatingin sa ospital, ay saklaw na ng PhilHealth ang gastusin. Ipapasok na kasi ito sa facility-based emergency benefit ng ahensya. Nilinaw naman ng ahensya sa mga ospital, hindi na kailangan ng hiwalay na accreditation para makapagbigay ng FBE benefits dahil kasama na ito sa kanilang accreditation bilang mga ospital. Samantala, inaasahan naman na anunsyo ng PhilHealth sa mga susunod na araw ang magiging coverage para sa ambulance services sa ilalim naman ng pre-emergency hospital benefit.
Umabot na sa 1,023 katao ang inaresto ng Philippine National Police o PNP dahil po sa paglabag sa umiiral na election gun bans sa buong bansa. Ayon sa PNP, nasa higit 300 mga individual na naaresto ay mula sa Metro Manila. Sinundan naman ang Central Luzon na nasa 162 at Central Visayas na may 138 violators. Kabilang sa mga nadakip ay 5 PNP personnel, 7 Armed Forces of the Philippines personnel, 5 personnel mula sa iba pang law enforcement agencies, 2 elected government officials, 2 appointed government officials at 4 na foreign nationals. Kasama rin sa lumabag sa gun ban ang 22 security guards at 773 mga sibilyan. Nasa higit 1,000 armas rin ang nakumpiska ng PNP, kabilang na ang mga revolver, pistols, gun replicas, explosives, Class A guns, rifles, shotguns at iba pa.
Sa pamamagitan ng repatriation ay nakabalik na ng Pilipinas ang 12 overseas Filipino workers o OFWs na biktima ng human trafficking at illegal na recruitment sa Myanmar. Ayon sa Department of Migrant Workers o DMW, may isang Pilipino na nag-recruit at nag-alok ng trabaho sa mga biktima bilang mga customer sales representatives sa Myanmar. Subalit, pinagtrabaho sila bilang mga online scammers nang walang bayad at walang araw ng pahinga. Pisikal din nilang inabuso ang mga naturang Pilipino dahil sila ay binugbog ng PVC sticks at sumailalim pa sa mga electric shock. Napilitan din ang mga biktima na tumalon, mag-squat, mag-duck walk at frog walk ng ilang oras. Tirangka ng mga OFW na humingi ng pahintulot na umalis sa kanilang mga employer, subalit pinagbabayad nila sila ng $50,000 para makalaya. Dahil hindi nila kaya magbayad ng malaking halaga ng pera ay tumakas sa mga biktima at humingi na ng tulong sa militar ng Myanmar. Sinabi ng DMW na naging posible ang pagsagip sa mga biktima sa pamamagitan ng coordinated actions ng Philippine Embassy at Migrant Workers Office sa Bangkok. Samantala, kaagad na binigyan ang mga repatriated OFWs ng financial assistance, psychosocial services at legal aid. Patuloy na nagbababala ang DMW sa mga OFW at Pilipino na naghahanap ng trabaho sa ibang bansa na maging mas maingat sa mga job offers, lalo na ang mga nababasa sa mga social media platforms. Dapat nilang i-verify muna ang mga job opportunities na ito sa pamamagitan ng paggamit ng opisyal na website ng ahensya.
Susunod, Chinese President Xi Jinping nakatakdang bisitahin si Donald Trump sa White House.
Donald Trump tinawag na diktador si Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
At Argentinian President Javier Milei nahaharap sa impeachment. Ang iba pang mga balitang yan sa pagbabalik ng mata ng Agila International.
Habang busy si Jessica sa pag-iwas sa kanyang mga manliligaw.
Kaya ko nang mag-isa, no?
Kalat na yung chismis tungkol sa inyong dalawa ni Sean. Masaya ka na?
Ano? Magiging target na naman ang alaga niya.
Sinasabi mong gusto mo si Sean, pero may ginagawa ka bang bagay na makakabuti sa kapakanan niya?
Ano na naman bang binabalik nitong si Kylie? Jessica Dugo, bibigyan kita ng malaki at mabigat na dagok. Hello, my shining love. Weeknights, 9 p.m. on NET25.
Let's net together. So NET25.
Inaasahan ni US President Donald Trump ang pagbisita ni Chinese President Xi Jinping, ngunit hindi pa ito nagbibigay ng eksaktong petsa sa plano nitong pagbisita. Sa isang press conference ukol sa estado ng Air Force One ay sinabi ni Trump na may posibilidad na sumailalim sa panibagong trade deal sa pagitan ng Beijing at Washington. Tinitingnan itong panibagong kasunduan bilang importante para sa paghupa ng trade war sa pagitan ng dalawang world powers. Nag-usap na si Trump at Xi bago ito manumpa bilang presidente para pag-usapan ng mga bagay katulad ng TikTok, kalakalan at posisyon nito ukol sa kasarinlan ng Taiwan. Huling bumisita si President Xi Jinping sa Estados Unidos noong Nobyembre ng taong 2023 upang makipagpulong kay dating President Joe Biden na nagresulta sa pagbuhay ng military-to-military communications ng dalawang bansa at sa pagpuksa ng fentanyl production na nanggagaling sa China.
I have a very good relationship with President Xi. I think a great relationship with President Xi. But remember, he loves China. And I love the USA, so, right there's a little bit of competitiveness. But the relationship I have with President Xi is, I would say, a great one. It was obviously hurt by COVID coming in. It hurt them, hurt us, hurt everybody, hurt the whole world. But outside of that, I have a very, very good relationship with President Xi.
Are you looking to make a trade deal?
I think he's a very unique person.
Would you make a new trade deal with China? I mean,
It's possible.
one trade deal never really got
It's possible. Well, we did a great trade deal with China. We did it great for the farmers, great for manufacturers. They had to buy $50 billion worth of our product, and we were making them buy it. The problem is that Biden didn't push them to adhere to it.
Ilang oras lamang matapos ilunsad ng Russia ang YARS, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile o ICBM nito, ay nagpakitang gilas na ang Estados Unidos at deploy naman ito ang Minuteman III ICBM. Sinabi ng US Air Force na inilunsad nila ang Minuteman III hypersonic missile para ipakita na ang pagiging nuclear deterrent ng US Estados Unidos ay nananatiling ligtas, maasahan at epektibo. Nanggaling ang ICBM na US Vandenberg Space Force Base sa California at naglakbay ng 15,000 miles per hour. Bumagsak ito malapit sa Kwajalein Atoll sa Pacific Ocean. Nakumpleto ng Minuteman III ang 4,200-mile journey sa loob lamang ng 22 minutes. Kayang magdala ng tatlong MK-12A nuclear warhead ang US ICBM at bawat isa ay may 350,000 tons na TNT. Pero unarmed missile muna ang ginamit ng US para sa nasabing test launch. Obserbasyon ng mga war experts, pwedeng umabot ang Minuteman ng US sa Russia at maging sa China. Ang Moscow anila ay nasa laing 5,900 miles mula sa California, habang ang Beijing naman ay 6,000 miles away lamang sa US.
A modestly successful comedian and a dictator without elections. Yan ang paglalarawan ni US President Donald Trump kay Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Bukod rito ay sinabi rin ni Trump na ayaw daw ni Zelensky na magkaroon ng eleksyon sa Ukraine at mababa rin umano ang approval ratings ng Kyiv sa leader sa polls. Sinisi rin ni Trump si dating US President Joe Biden dahil hindi raw nito sinubukan na magkaroon ng kapayapaan, bigurin niya ang Europa na ayusin ang digmaan sa pagitan ng Ukraine at Russia.
I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered. And millions of people have unnecessarily died. And you can't bring a war to an end if you don't talk to both sides. You got to talk. They haven't been talking for 3 years. So we hope to see a ceasefire soon and to reestablish stability in Europe and the Middle East. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably maybe he wants to keep the gravy train going. I don't know what's the problem, but he hasn't been able. He's very upset that he wasn't invited. He could have come if he wanted to, but that he wasn't invited to Saudi Arabia. But he's been working for 3 years. There's never been even meetings or phone calls to stop this war. It's a horrible thing.
Samantala, inakusahan naman ni Zelensky si Trump na inuulit nito ang Russian propaganda at iginiit nito na dapat kasama ang Ukraine sa negosyasyon ng peace talks ng Estados Unidos at ng Russia para sa digmaang Moscow at Kyiv. Samantala, nagsimula ng dialogo sa pagitan ng Australia at ng Papua New Guinea para sumailalim sa isang full defense treaty na magpapalakas sa kooperasyong militar ng dalawang bansa.
Today, the Minister and I are announcing that our two countries are commencing negotiations to establish a defence treaty between Australia and PNG. This will be a treaty with ambition. It will be the most significant defence agreement between our two countries since Papua New Guinean independence. Australia's biggest defence cooperation program is in Papua New Guinea. Already there is extensive training which occurs amongst the Papua New Guinean Defence Force in Australia. But this will enable our two defence forces to walk down a pathway of increasing integration and increasing interoperability.
Sa ngayon ay may tumatayong Defense Cooperation Agreement sa gitna ng dalawang bansa, ngunit ayon kay Australian Defense Minister Richard Marles, layo ng usapang itong mailimbag ang isang full defense treaty na magpapatatag ng ugnayan ng sangay ng military ng kanilang mga bansa. Isa lamang ang kasunduang ito sa mga kasunduang planong pasukin ng dalawang bansa para mapalakas ang estado ng Pacific Islands sa international community.
You know, we live in a world which is increasingly strategically complex. This is a moment where it is really important that we are working with our closest of friends, but in this case, we are working with family, and that is very much how we see our relationship with Papua New Guinea.
We have consciously made a decision to choose who should be our friends in as far as security is concerned. And we have many friends, and we treat those friends uniquely in different levels. But with Australia, we are, as my Prime Minister, as you said, tied to the hips. We are very close.
Sinabi ng Poland at tiniyak ng Estados Unidos na hindi nito babawasan ang mga sundalo ng US sa silangang bahagi ng Europa. Narito pong report ni Myla Simbulan.
Matapos makipagpulong ni Pangulong Andrzej Duda ng Poland kay US-Ukraine Envoy Keith Kellogg, sinabi nitong tiniyak sa kanya ng mga opisyal ng Estados Unidos na walang balak bawasan ng Washington ang bilang ng mga sundalo nito sa Eastern Europe.
Nie ma absolutnie żadnych zamiarów amerykańskich co do tego, żeby obniżać aktywność tutaj w naszej części Europy, zwłaszcza w zakresie bezpieczeństwa, zmniejszać liczbę amerykańskich żołnierzy. Wręcz przeciwnie, proszę Państwa, kiedy rozmawiałem z panem sekretarzem Hegzetem, powiedział bardzo wyraźnie, że możemy się raczej spodziewać wzmocnienia amerykańskiej obecności. Tutaj rozmawialiśmy nawet o tym, że mam nadzieję, że Fort Trump, o którym mówiliśmy w czasie pierwszej kadencji prezydenta Donalda Trumpa, naprawdę powstanie i że będzie taka bardzo silnie zakorzeniona amerykańska obecność militarna w naszym kraju.
Dahil sa mga pangyayari noong isang linggo, tila naalog ang papel ng Washington sa seguridad ng Europe. Sinabi kasi ni US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth na hindi dapat ipagpalagay ng NATO allies na habang buhay na nasa Europa ang US. Subalit matapos makipagpulong ni Duda kay Kellogg noong Lunes at kay Hegseth naman noong Biyernes, tiniyak nito sa polls ang ukol sa plano ng Washington.
Nie ma obaw przed tym, aby Stany Zjednoczone miały obniżać poziom swojej obecności w naszym kraju. tego, aby Stany Zjednoczone miały w jakikolwiek sposób wycofywać się ze swojej odpowiedzialności czy współodpowiedzialności za bezpieczeństwo tej części Europy. Wręcz przeciwnie, mam nadzieję, że dzięki tym wysiłkom, które w tej chwili podejmuje prezydent Donald Trump, wojna na Ukrainie zostanie zakończona.
Babiyahe si Kellogg papuntang Ukraine upang makipagkita kay President Volodymyr Zelensky sa Kyiv. Ito ay pagkatapos ng bisita niya sa Poland. May nasimbulan para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Rebuild Gaza without displacing the Palestinians. Ito ang panawagan sa international community ng Spain at ng Egypt. Matapos i-anunsyo ni US President Donald Trump ang kanyang ideya na dapat daw ay umalis sa mga Palestinians sa nasabing teritoryo. Isang ideya na ikinadismaya naman ng Arab community. Si Yolanda Aspiras para sa balita.
Sa isang magkasamang pahayag sa Madrid, sinabi ni Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez at Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi na ang Gaza Strip ang lupa ng Palestinians. Dahil diyan, sinabi ng dalawang bansa na hindi dapat i-relocate ang mga ito.
El rechazo rotundo de España y de su gobierno a la propuesta de trasladar población palestina fuera de la franja de Gaza. Gaza es de los palestinos y es parte del futuro Estado palestino. Su expulsión no solo sería inmoral y contraria al derecho internacional y a las resoluciones de Naciones Unidas, sino que además tendría un efecto desestabilizador a nivel regional y a nivel mundial.
كما أكدنا على أهمية دعم المجتمع الدولي وتبنيه خطة إعادة إعمار قطاع غزة دون تهجير الشعب الفلسطيني، وأكرر دون تهجير الشعب الفلسطيني من أرضه التي يتمسك بها ووطنه الذي لا يقبل التفريط فيه، وبما يضمن البدء الفوري في عمليات الإغاثة والتعافي المبكر.
Kamakailan naghain si US President Donald Trump ng isang plano ukol sa pagdedevelop muli ng Gaza Strip na isang international beach resort matapos ilikas ang Palestinians mula rito. Nananawagan si Trump sa Jordan at Egypt na tanggapin ng Palestinians na ililikas mula sa Gaza. Subalit sinabi ni Sanchez na immoral at laban sa batas international ang paglilikas na ito. Tinanggihan ng Egypt, Jordan at iba pang Arab states ang plano ni Trump. Ayon sa mga ito, bubuo sila ng isang alternatibo na itatapat sa proposal ni Trump.
Desde España vamos a seguir apostando, presidente al-Sisi, por una solución política que permita hacer realidad la solución de los dos estados. Para ello, el liderazgo árabe es fundamental y vamos a apoyar, por supuesto, la propuesta de que se apruebe en la cumbre de la Liga Árabe en el Cairo del próximo 4 de marzo la idea de la reconstrucción de Gaza.
Dagdag ni Sisi, walang ipapalit sa UN Palestinian Refugee Agency o UNRWA ang ahensyang nagbibigay ng tulong, serbisyong pang-edukasyon at pangkalusugan sa milyon-milyong residente ng Palestinian territories, Syria, Lebanon at Jordan.
وأكدنا كذلك على ضرورة دعم المنظمات الدولية العاملة في المجال الإنساني بالقطاع وفي مقدمتها وكالة الأونروا التي لا يمكن الاستغناء عنها في تقديم الخدمات الإنسانية الأساسية للشعب الفلسطيني.
Samantala, ayon sa UNRWA, mapipinsala ang mga operasyon nito sa Gaza Strip at West Bank matapos itong ipagbawal ng Israel. Yolanda Aspiras para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Samantala, binaliwala ni U.S. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham ang Gaza occupation plan ni Donald Trump habang sinabi naman ni Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal na inaasahan nila ang isang proposal mula sa Arab states.
So once you find out who wants to stay after they've given a chance to leave, the Palestinians, what do you do next? Well, I've been working for 2.5 years on a solution to the Palestinian file that Israel can live with and the Arab world can support. Bottom line is that no one expects Israel to do any kind of deal regarding Gaza or the West Bank that would lead to another October 7th. Nobody expects Israel to allow Hamas to stay in charge, and nobody believes that the PA is the right answer in this current construct. One thing I will say, there's very little appetite that I've seen in the United States Senate for America to take over Gaza in any way, shape, or form. I think that would be a difficult sell in South Carolina.
Sinabi nila ito sa kanilang pagbisita sa Israeli Parliament kasunod ng kanilang pagpupulong kay Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Sa kabila ng suporta ng Israeli Prime Minister and Parliament sa occupation plan ni Trump na magpapalaya sa kabuuang populasyon ng mga Palestino, hinanda na rin ni Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz ang IDF na maghanda para sa puwersang pagpapalayas sa mga Palestino mula sa Gaza. Sinabi ni Graham na kapartido ng presidente na mababa ang kagustuhan ng Amerika na sakupin ang Gaza sa kahit ano pang kapasidad. Ayon naman kay Senator Richard Blumenthal, isang non-starter ang naging mga pahayag ni Trump ukol sa Gaza. Subalit, sa kabila nito ay hinimok nito ang mga Arab states na bigyang halaga ang usapin ukol sa Gaza.
My talks with King Abdullah convinced me that the plan that the Arab states will offer to President Trump provides a realistic prospect for normalizing relations, self-determination by the Palestinians, regional defense arrangements, and security for Israel. If those components are part of a realistic plan, it could be a game changer for the region.
Nakatakdang makipagpulong ang Saudi, Emirati, Jordanian at Egyptian officials para mapag-usapan ang magiging kinabukasan ng naturang teritoryo ng mga Palestino.
Iniulat ng campaign groups na bumaba ng 25% ang bilang ng mga financial institutions na may kaugnayan sa mga nuclear arms. Ito ay mula ng ipatupad ang isang kasunduan ng United Nations taong 2021. Si JC Yumul para sa mga detalye.
Ang findings ng campaign group ay inilabas sa isang ulat na pinamagatang Don't Bank on the Bomb ng peace organization na PAX at ang International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons o ICAN. Nanalo ito ng Nobel Peace Prize noong 2017 para sa kanilang mga pagsisikap na itaguyod ang pagsunod sa kasunduan ng UN ukol sa pagbabawal ng mga sandatang nuklear. Sa ngayon, 73 estado na ang nagpatibay nito. Ayon kay Alejandra Muñoz Valdez ng PAX, ang pagbaba ng bilang ng mga institusyong pinansyal na may kaugnayan sa sandatang nuklear ay mabuting bagay.
What we're seeing this year is that our findings are showing 260 financial institutions worldwide with significant investments or financing relations with nuclear weapon producers, so one or more of 24 nuclear weapon producers that we also profile in the reports. And what we've actually been seeing over the last years is that this number of financial institutions with significant financial exposure to the nuclear weapon industry that have come up in our findings, that this number has continued to fall, which we've been seeing since 2021, also the year the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons entered into force. So we see this as a good thing.
Dagdag ni Valdez, maraming kumpanya ang nagpatibay ng mga polisiya na naglilimita o nagbubukod sa pamumuhunan sa mga sandatang nuklear. Binanggit na partikular nito ang kasunduan noong 2021 kahit na ang mga kumpanya ay mula sa mga bansa kung saan hindi pa ito pinagtitibay.
When it comes to the values, so we found investors held a total value of almost $514 billion in shares and bonds in the nuclear weapons producers. So that's an increase compared to previous years. And just under $270 billion was provided to the companies in loans and underwriting services. And here we see a drop, especially in loans. we see a drop of $16.3 billion compared to our last analysis.
Gayunpaman, tinatayang nasa 260 na institusyon, pinansyal tulad ng mga bangko at pensions funds ang may exposure pa rin sa mga sandatang nuklear. Ayon sa ulat, ito ay sa pamamagitan ng shares at bonds o mga nagbibigay ng mga pautang o underwriting ng utang.
Yeah, we see it as a good thing that the total number of financial institutions has continued to fall. But of course, there's still 260 financial institutions that do invest in these companies either through shares and bonds or provides loans or underwriting. And we think, these are weapons of mass destruction. The most destructive weapons ever created with devastating consequences should they ever be used. So we think, all investors should stay away from the companies that produce them.
JCU Mul para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Samantala, sinabi ng South Africa na hindi pa tumutugon ang Estados Unidos sa plano nitong talakayin ang ukol sa pagputol ng pinansyal na tulong sa maraming bansa. Jonah Malyari po para sa report.
Ayon kay South African Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola, hindi pa sumasagot ang US sa subok na pakikipag-usap nito ukol sa executive order ni Pangulong Donald Trump na pagputol ng aid o tulong.
Despite all our attempts through our mission in Washington to formally engage and communicate, and we don't think it's ideal that diplomatic matters can only be handled through social media. I think the platform of formal lines of communication, not verbals, formal engagements, always help to clarify issues and challenges, because South Africa's position is very clear. We still see the US as an important partner.
Pinutol ni Trump ang financial assistance para sa South Africa dahil sa hindi pagsang-ayon ng US sa land reform policy ng bansa at sa kasong genocide nito laban sa Israel sa International Court of Justice. Ani Lamula, susubukan pa rin itong makipag-ugnayan sa US, subalit paghahanda rin sa anumang kahihinatnan ng bansa dahil sa kawalan ng tulong mula sa Estados Unidos.
We still think there is a need for us, with them, to engage in a constructive way. Obviously, we may agree on certain issues and we may not agree on certain issues, but that line of engagement and communication must remain open. But we will continue to reach out. We will not get tired. We will also have no choice but to plan for all scenarios.
Punong abala ang South Africa para sa G20 meeting of foreign ministers sa Johannesburg. Hindi ito dadaluhan ni US State Secretary Marco Rubio matapos nitong hindi sang-ayunan ang tema ng pagpupulong na solidarity, equality, sustainability. Ayon kay Lamola, makikipagpulong ito sa ilang mga bansa kasama ang China na nangako ng suporta sa South Africa.
They're in solidarity with us and they stand ready to pledge support in terms of whatever trade relations and challenges that they can be able to. And we were glad that this is the same message coming out of the European Union. Canada as part of the G7 and other G7 countries. So there could be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Jonna Malari para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Inakusahan si Argentinian President Javier Milei ng pagiging crypto scammer daw. Dahil dito, posible raw siyang ma-impeach. Alamin nga natin ang mga iba pang detalye mula kay Love and Season.
Dahil sa pag-post ng meme coin ni Argentinian President Javier Milei sa kanyang X account ay posible raw na masampan siya ng reklamong impeachment. Marami kasi ang naghihinala na siya ay isang crypto scammer dahil ilang sandali lamang ay binura niya ang kanyang tweet tungkol sa Libra coin. Pagkatapos na itong gawin ay bumagsak ang value ng Libra coin. Marami ang naniniwala sa sinabi ni President Milei sa X platform na makakatulong ang nasabing crypto coin sa mga maliliit na negosyo at startups. Dahil dito, nagsampa ng kasong fraud ang ilang abogado laban kay Milei. Inakusahan din ng dating Pangulo ng Argentina na si Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner na si Milei ay isang crypto scammer. Depensa naman ni President Milei ay walang koneksyon sa LibraCoin ng kanyang post at nag-tweet niya siya bilang suporta sa mga negosyanteng naglulunsad ng mga proyekto sa Argentina.
Those who participated in that, they did so voluntarily, and it was a problem between private individuals. Because here, the state here doesn't play any role. Let's be clear with that. We have now requested the intervention of the Anti-Corruption Office so that it investigates everybody, including myself. This has never happened before in Argentina.
Subalit, ayaw na siyang paniwalaan ng mga investors dahil pinost din niya ang link ng website kung saan pwedeng bumili ng Libra currency. Ang market capitalization ng meme coin ay umabot sa $4.5 billion at ang presyo nito ay sumampa sa $4.50 bago bumagsak sa halagang $0.50 sa loob lamang ng ilang minuto dahil binura daw ni Milei ang post nito sa X. Maraming investors at crypto analysts ang naniniwala na isang rug pull o pakana ang ginawa ni President Milei upang akitin ang mga namimili na itaas ang halaga ng isang crypto coin bago ang isang quick sell-off para maibusa ang pera ng iba. Sa pagtataya ng mga analysts ay nasa $87 million ang naibusa ng mga developers ng Libra coin. Samantalang naluha na lamang ang mga investors dahil sila ay nalugi sa naiuwing zero value ng meme coin.
We must focus on analyzing the political responsibility. The impeachment is justified in that sense. The 47 million Argentinians need to know whether they have a president who lets a scam happen right under their nose without realizing it, or if they have a president who is a scammer.
Naglunsad na ng isang investigasyon ng Anti-Corruption Agency ng Argentina para alamin kung kasabwat ba si President Milei sa nangyaring scam. Love and Season para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Kinumpirma ng Mexico na ang pagpapalipad ng US drone sa Mexico ay bahagi ng kolaborasyon ng dalawang bansa. Wala umanong iligal na aktibidad dito. Asa Sakmar po para sa detalye.
Noong Miyerkules, sinabi ni Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum na ang US drone flight sa teritoryo ng Mexico ay bahagi ng isang legal na kolaborasyon sa Washington.
En primer lugar, no hay nada ilegal. Lo que hay es una colaboración y una cooperación que tiene muchísimos años, no es de ahora.
Dagdag ni Sheinbaum, ang drone flights na ito ay ginagawa na ng marami bilang tugon sa isyong pansiguridad.
Estos vuelos son parte de coordinación, aquí está el almirante secretario, colaboraciones que se hacen desde hace muchos años entre el gobierno de Estados Unidos y el gobierno de México, y muchas veces esa petición, o más bien, todas las veces es bajo petición del gobierno de México, de colaboración, de información para poder atender condiciones de seguridad.
Ang mga komentong ito ni Sheinbaum ay sa gitna ng tensyon sa pagitan ng US at Mexico matapos sabihin ni Pangulong Donald Trump na ituturing na samahang terorista ang Mexican drug cartels. Ito ay bilang bahagi ng aksyon ng US na wakasan ang trapiko ng synthetic opioid fentanyl papasok ng Amerika. At noong Miyerkules, batay sa isang US Federal Register Notice, may ilang drug cartels ang tinutukoy ng Estados Unidos na global terrorist organizations. Ayon sa isang US official, ang drone flights na pinagkasunduan ng Mexico at Washington ay hindi armado. Misyon nito na matukoy ang fentanyl labs sa Mexico. Ashley Sakmar para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Libo-libo ang nagprotesta sa kabisera ng Estados Unidos laban sa mga malawakang pagbabago sa mga ahensya ng gobyerno. Ito ay mula nang maupong muli si US President Donald Trump noong Enero. Si Leslie Gumaran para sa balita.
Ipinuwesto ni Pangulong Donald Trump si Elon Musk upang pangunahan ng pagkakaltas ng tinatawag nitong walang saysay na paggastos. Ito ay bahagi ng pag-overhaul sa gobyerno kasama ang pagtanggal sa libo-libong trabaho. Ayon sa mga demonstrador, labis ang kapangyarihang ibinigay sa Department of Government Efficiency o DOGE. Hinihimok ng mga ito ang Kongreso na makialam na at labanan ng mga desisyon ni Trump at Musk. Para sa mga nagpaprotesta, nanganganib ang kinabukasan ng bansa dahil sa paraan ng pamumuno ng bagong gobyerno.
We're here because we're trying to protest the overreach that President Trump and Elon Musk are using to ruin our government and ruin our image around the world, honestly, because we fought for a strong America that helps people, that does the right thing, and we want to make sure that we maintain that legacy for future generations.
I have a 5-year-old grandson, and it breaks my heart to think that he may not have the same freedoms that I have been entitled to in my life. All the children in the world who are suffering based on the poor decisions that are being made in our country. I live in Texas, but I came to D.C. to speak for the children and for all of the young people who deserve a bright future and do not deserve to live in an autocratic world.
The ends do not justify the means. There's a right way and a wrong way to accomplish change. And President Trump has broken every rule of appropriate democratic change in our society. And it scares me quite a bit. He has usurped power that he doesn't have. He's taken actions without regard to the consequences. And a lot of people are being hurt. And it's going to cascade. And I believe it's an existential threat to the United States. So I'm not here to talk about whether it's right or wrong to reduce the deficit or whether the government's too big. That's not the issue. The issue is how he's doing it.
Leslie Gumarang para sa Mata ng Agila International, Trusted, Connected, On Point.
Susunod, Sao Paulo, Brazil nagdeklarara health emergency dahil sa dengue.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams nahaharap sa panibagong political scandal.
At weightlifting magiging kabilang na ng palarong pambansa. Mga detalye po ng mga balita niyan at iba pa sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Inilikas ang mga residente mula sa 30 mga tirahan sa bayan ng Godstone sa England matapos lumitaw ang 20-meter na sinkhole roon. Ayon sa Surrey County Council, sinimulan na nila ang investigasyon sa kung paano ba lumitaw ang malaking butas sa daan. Naglagay na ng kordon ang mga otoridad at pinayuhan na rin nila ang mga residenteng umiwasan munang dumaan o pumunta malapit sa sinkhole. Sinabi naman ng SEZ Water Company na may sumabog na water main pipe sa Godstone High Street na pinaniniwala ang sanhi ng pagkakaroon ng sinkhole sa Godstone Town.
Sugatan ang hindi bababa sa 12 katao matapos sumabog ang isang food stall sa Shanxi, China. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, nagliyab ang isang gas tank ng food stall na naging sanhi ng pagsabog sa lugar. Wala namang napaulat na nasawi sa trahedya, pero maraming mga ari-arian ang nasira sa pagsabog. Iniimbestigahan naman ng mga otoridad kung may nalabag na safety procedure ang naturang food stall.
Naispatan ang isang pagalagalang leon sa DU India na tumatawid pa ng kalsada. Ayon sa mga forest officials, may kinalaman ang nasisirang ecological balance sa mga gubat kaya umaalis ang mga hayop sa kanilang natural habitat. Bukod sa nababago ang tirahan ng mga leon, lumilipat ito sa tinutuluyan ng mga tao dahil na rin sa climate change. Napansin na rin ng mga otoridad na sa kaso ng mga Asiatic lions sa DU Sanctuary ay dumarami ang kanilang populasyon, subalit limitado na ang kanilang mga tirahan. Ayon kay Deputy Conservator of Forest Rajdeep Singh Zala, nasa 10 leon na ang kanilang nailigtas sa DU.
Isinailalim sa state of health emergency ang estado ng Sao Paulo sa Brazil dahil sa dengue outbreak. Ayon kay Sao Paulo Health Secretary Eliuses Paiva, inaasahan ng lokal na pamahalaan na mas tataas pa ang kaso ng dengue sa bansa sa buwan ng Abril. Anya, isang malaking hamon ito sa kanila at kailangan nilang sirain ang mga mosquito breeding grounds sa estado. Inaasahan ni Paiva na sa bisa ng emergency declaration ay mapabibilis ang kanilang pagbili ng mga medical supplies para gamutin ang mga may sakit. Ang Sao Paulo ay may ambag na 58% sa kabuuang kaso ng dengue sa Brazil ayon sa Health Ministry. Sa ngayon, nakapag-ulat ang estado ng 124,038 cases ng dengue at 113 confirmed deaths.
Kinwestiyon ng isang US judge ang kahilingan ng prosecutors na ilaglag ang reklamong korupsyon laban sa mayor ng New York City. Ayon po sa judge, ang kahilingan ito ay dapat munang dumaan sa clarificatory questions. Anjo Milano po para sa karagdagang detalye.
Noong Miyerkules, sinabi ng isang US judge na may mga katanungan ito ukol sa kahilingan ng prosecutors na ihulog ang corruption charges laban kay New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Noong isang linggo sa pag-uutos ni Pangulong Donald Trump, hiniling ng mga opisyal ng Justice Department na i-dismiss ni District Judge Dale Ho ang mga reklamo laban kay Adams. Ilang mga opisyal ng Justice Department ang nagbitiw sa kanilang mga pwesto bilang protesta sa tinatawag nilang pangingialam o political interference sa ilalim ng Republican President. Ayon kay Ho, ang kahilingang ito ay tila kakaibang sitwasyon. Ayon kay Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove na isang appointee at dating personal criminal defense lawyer nito, kailangang i-dismiss ang kaso laban kay Adams upang makapag-focus ang mayor sa pagtulong nito kay Trump sa immigration crackdown ng administrasyon. Samantala, ayon naman sa senior Democrats, ang paghulog ng kaso ay ikatatali ni Adams sa administrasyon. Si Adams ay isang Democrat. Noong Setyembre, kinasuhan ang 64-year-old na mayor ng pagtanggap ng lagay ay donasyon sa kampanya mula sa Turkish nationals na nais impluwensyahan ang administrasyon nito. Nag-plead ito ng not guilty. Samantala, si Judge Ho ay anak ng Filipino immigrants na ipinanganak at lumaki sa San Jose, California. Siya ngayon ay naninirahan sa Brooklyn. Anjo Milano para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Marami pong Republicans ang natuwa sa plano ni Elon Musk na magbalik ng dividends sa mga Amerikano. Bahagi ito ng inisyatibo ng Department of Government Efficiency o DOGE ni Musk para sa administrasyon ni US President Donald Trump. Approve din kay Trump ang ideya ni Elon at sinabi niyang kinukonsidera rin niya na gamitin ang 20% savings ng DOGE upang bayaran ang utang ng federal government.
A seriously high IQ individual. Now, he's got his faults also, I will tell you that. But not too many of them, which is now really waging war on government waste, fraud, and abuse. And they're curbing inflation and saving taxpayers billions and billions of dollars every single day. And there's even under consideration a new concept where we give 20% of the DOGE savings to American citizens and 20% goes to paying down debt, because the numbers are incredible, Elon. So many billions of dollars, billions, hundreds of billions, and we're thinking about giving 20% back to the American citizens and 20% down to pay back debt and pay down debt.
Inilabas na ng Microsoft ang kanilang ipinagmamalaking sariling quantum computing chip. Ayon sa Microsoft, ang kanilang chip na kilala sa tawag na Majorana 1 ay hindi masyadong prone sa error kumpara sa kung ano meron ang kanilang mga karibal na tech firms. Giit ng Microsoft, halos 2 dekada nila itong pinag-aaralan at gumamit pa sila ng bagong uri ng material para ma-develop ang nasabing chip. Anila dinisenyo ang Microsoft chip gamit ang topological superconductor, topoconductor, na isang susi para mahasa ang quantum information processing ng chip. Sa kabila nito ay hindi nagbigay ng eksaktong petsa kung kailan magiging available sa merkado ang nasabing chip.
Naglunsad na rin ang Apple ng mid-range smartphone para makipagsabayan sa Samsung at Huawei. Ayon sa Apple, inilabas nila ang iPhone 16e para pataasin ang kanilang benta sa pamamagitan ng pag-expand ng mga artificial intelligence o AI features ng kanilang mga produkto. Anila, gumamit sila ng A18 chip para sa iPhone 16e na suportado ng Apple Intelligence para sa magandang performance. Sa kabila nito, ayon sa mga analysts, maaaring hindi agad maramdaman ang epekto nito sa merkado. Nagkakahalaga ang bagong iPhone 16e ng $599 o halos 35,000 pesos.
Makakasama ni Charlie Woods, ang anak po ni Tiger Woods, ang apo naman ni US President Donald Trump na si Kai Trump sa isang junior golf tournament. Prestigious ang nasabing golf event dahil ito ay for the invitation only. At ayon sa media sources, makakalaban ni Charlie at Kai ang iba pang magagaling na junior golfers sa US. Gaganapin ang major junior golf event na ito sa Sage Valley, South Carolina sa susunod na buwan.
Naku, magandang balita, nakabalik na po ang sport na weightlifting sa palarong pambansa. Ayon kay Samahang Weightlifting ng Pilipinas President Monico Puentevilla, naging maganda ang resulta ng kanilang pakikipag-usap ng mahigit 15 taon para maisama ang sport sa palarong pambansa na gaganapin mula Mayo 24 hanggang Hunyo 2 sa Lawag, Ilocos Norte. Dagdag pa nito na tumulong din si Olympic gold medalist Heidelin Diaz Naranjo para maibalik ang nasabing sport. Umaasa rin ito na susunod din ang Commission on Higher Education o CHED para makahanap ang bansa ng pambato sa mga international na mga sporting events. Pinasalamatan ni Puentevilla si Department of Education Secretary Sonny Angara dahil sa pagsali sa nasabing sport. Sakaling makatutulong ang mga local government units na makabili ng mga equipment ay natitiyak niya na maraming medalya ang maibubulsa ng Pilipinas sa Olympics. Pinatunayan ni Anthony Mackie, aka Sam Wilson, na siya ang bagong Captain America ng Marvel Cinematic Universe. Ito ay matapos kumita ng $88.5 million ang pelikulang Captain America Brave New World nitong holiday weekend. Sinabi ng Walt Disney Company na posibleng umabot pa sa $100 million domestically ang kanilang kikitain, habang papalo ang projection ng ticket sales ng pelikula sa $192.4 million globally. Sa ngayon ay tinuturing ng Walt Disney Company na biggest opener of 2025 ang pelikula ni Anthony Mackie. Matatandaan na ipinasa ng character ni Chris Evans ang titular role na Captain America kay Falcon, ang role ni Mackie noon sa ending ng pelikulang Avengers Endgame.
Samantala, nagdamit naman ng kulay blue na traffic police uniform ang mga bata sa Tonglei Kindergarten sa Shanghai, China para ipaalala sa mga siklista na palaging magsuot ng helmet. Ayon kay Wang Shuying, isang kindergarten teacher, gumawa sila ng slideshow tungkol sa traffic safety para ituro sa mga kabataan ang tamang pagsusuot ng helmet. Anya, malaking tulong ito para sa mga magulang ng mga bata na alam nila na ligtas ang kanilang mga anak dahil marunong silang magsuot ng headgear. Mula sa kanilang cute na interaction sa mga tao sa daan ay nakatulong na sila sa kaligtasan ng kanilang komunidad at napaantig din nila ang mga puso ng mga dumaraan sa lansangan. Ang cute.
Oo, tsaka alam mo, hindi naman lugar-lugar yan, ano? I think kahit saan, for the sake of safety, kailangan talagang i-encourage. In fact, i-enjoy mo talaga ang publiko na magsuot ng helmet kapag naka-expose sa mga posibleng panganib.
Tama, di ba? Tsaka pinag-usapan rin natin, favorite color natin yan, di ba? Yung mga nakasuot ng blue.
Di ba yung ngiti natin? Paano bagang predictive of what will be tomorrow.
Yes, nako, blue na blue yan. Nako, at yan, always be safe, lalo na yung mga siklista natin dyan, di ba? Uso ngayon yan sa traffic natin dito sa Pilipinas.
Naku, lalo na dito.
No, dito sa Metro Manila, di ba? Marami ang, nako, may mga kilala tayo na kahit malapit lang, siguro hindi na sila nagsusot ng headgear, but always be responsible.
Exactly.
Because a lot can happen even in just a second.
Kaya nga aksidente ang tawag, di ba? Dahil hindi inaasahan. Pero mabuti na yung ikaw, laging handa.
Tama, ayan. Ito rin, laging handa to sa mga iba pang balita. Narito na po siya. Subalit tandaan ha, mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes. Narito kami ni Nina para maghatid ng balita sa amang dako ng mundo. Magandang gabi po. Ako po muli si Ricky Matay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman po sa iba pang mga balitang nangyari din sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa mata ng Agila World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina Enrique. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. Nearly 3 years into the war in Ukraine, a new conflict has emerged, and this time, a war of words between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
That he wasn't invited. He could have come if he wanted to, but that he wasn't invited to Saudi Arabia. But he's been working for 3 years. There's never been even meetings or phone calls to stop this war. It's a horrible thing.
So unfortunately, President Trump, who we respect a lot as a leader of the nation that we really respect, the American nation, who supported us all the time, unfortunately, he lives in this disinformation space.
And the news starts now. Nearly 3 years into the war in Ukraine, a new conflict has emerged, and this time, a war of words between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It began when President Trump accused President Zelensky of starting the war with Russia. Now, in response, President Zelensky accused President Trump of echoing Russian propaganda. This exchange has intensified tensions as the conflict approaches its third anniversary. Here's more.
U.S. President Donald Trump escalated his war of words with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday, calling him a dictator without elections in a Truth Social post, adding that he better move fast or he is not going to have a country left.
President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won, that never had to start and never would have started if I was president, not even a chance. And it didn't start for 4 years, never would have started. But a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. They'll never settle that war without our involvement. That's why they did such a great job this weekend. That's why Saudi Arabia did such a great job this weekend in hosting. $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably maybe he wants to keep the gravy train going. I don't know what's the problem, but he hasn't been able. He's very upset that he wasn't invited. He could have come if he wanted to, but that he wasn't invited to Saudi Arabia. But he's been working for 3 years. There's never been even meetings or phone calls to stop this war. It's a horrible thing.
Trump's post came just hours after Zelensky said the U.S. president was trapped in a Russian disinformation bubble, after Trump suggested on Tuesday that Ukraine was responsible for Russia's full-scale invasion.
You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Speaking at a news briefing, Zelensky said he would like Trump's team to have more truth about his country. Zelensky also said Trump's assertion that his approval rating was just 4% was Russian disinformation, and that any attempt to replace him would fail.
Якщо хтось хоче мене поміняти прямо зараз, то прямо зараз ніяк не вийде. Я би так сказав.
If someone wants to replace me right now, I would say it won't happen right now. As we are talking about 4%, we have seen this disinformation. We understand it's coming from Russia. We understand that, and we have proof that these numbers are being discussed between America and Russia. So unfortunately, President Trump, who we respect a lot as a leader of the nation that we really respect, the American nation, who supported us all the time, unfortunately, he lives in this disinformation space.
An early February poll from the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology shows 57% of Ukrainians trust their president. Trump's comments criticizing Zelensky come as the war between Ukraine and Russia nears its 3-year mark, following Russia's invasion on February 24, 2022. Russia has seized some 20% of Ukraine and is slowly but steadily gaining more territory in the east. Zelensky's 5-year term was supposed to end in 2024, but presidential and parliamentary elections cannot be held under martial law, which Ukraine imposed in February 2022 in response to Russia's invasion.
I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions of people have unnecessarily died. And you can't bring a war to an end if you don't talk to both sides. You got to talk. They haven't been talking for 3 years. So we hope to see a ceasefire soon and to reestablish stability in Europe and the Middle East. He refuses to have elections. It's low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh, no, his polls are good. Give me a break.
The war of words between Trump and Zelensky comes after a phone call between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin last week, which upended U.S. policy to isolate Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. It also follows talks between senior U.S. and Russian officials on ending the war that did not include Ukraine or Europe. On Wednesday, Putin praised the outcome of those talks in Saudi Arabia, saying, quote, I rate them highly, and added that Ukraine would not be excluded from negotiations to end the war.
To be honest, I am surprised at the restraint of the newly elected President of the United States, Trump, in dealing with his allies, who have behaved in such a frankly caddish manner. He's still being quite modest in their relations. They're not shutting themselves off. If we're talking about Ukrainian settlement, the United States is working with its European allies. Mr. Keith Kellogg, as far as I know, is in Kyiv right now. He has also met with the Europeans before.
Meanwhile, Trump's envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, met with Zelensky in Kyiv on Wednesday. He told reporters he was there to listen and said he understood Ukraine's need for security guarantees.
Give us a chance to have a good saying some talks. We had a chance to see President Zelensky and his team down in Munich. So I think this is going to be a continuation. Looking forward to doing it. And appreciate you all being out here.
What will be your main message to the President?
Well, I think we're going to listen. We understand the need for security guarantees. We're very interested in the important sovereignty of this nation and the independence of this nation as well. And we're going to, part of my mission is to sit and listen and say, okay, what are your concerns? What are you asking? We can go back to the United States, talk to President Trump, and with Secretary Rubio and the rest of the team, and just ensure that we get this one right. You know, this war has been going on now for 3 years, and President Trump's right. It's a war that very candidly, I truly believe would not have started if he was still president. It's an egregious war in the sense of the length of time and the casualties there. He understands the human suffering. He understands the damage that we see. And I think we want to see an end to it. I think it'd be good for the region, good for the world, good for all.
A denunciation by Donald Trump of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as a dictator is not necessarily indicative of a major change in U.S. policy, according to an analyst. The U.S. president also warned that Zelensky had to move quickly to secure peace or risk losing his country, deepening a feud between the two leaders that has alarmed European officials. Now, while the rhetoric of Trump and other officials has understandably been alarming to Kiev, John Herbst of the Atlantic Council said President Trump has made comments in the past that indicate he does not intend to abandon Ukraine.
There's a cost to Trump and his desire to end the war quickly in that agenda. Because, as he said rightly, 2 or 3 days into his second presidency, Putin's the obstacle. By making this broader, he was saying to Putin, this is not necessarily my highest priority. And if Putin is the obstacle, which he is, Trump needs to make clear it is his highest priority by giving the proper disincentives for Putin to continue the war.
So unfortunately, President Trump, who we respect a lot as a leader of the nation that we really respect, the American nation, who supported us all the time, unfortunately, he lives in this disinformation space.
We have yet to hear something from Trump, and now I'm talking about not just in the last few weeks, but even going back last year, where he clearly states that Russia is an aggressor and Ukraine is the victim. We just haven't heard that. So in that sense, the statements we're hearing now reflect a similar avoiding of some very clear realities. And while democracy is not perfect in Ukraine, it is democracy, whereas there's no democracy in Russia. So that makes Trump calling Zelensky a dictator rather fatuous if he's saying nothing about the strong man in Moscow.
Herbst, a former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and Uzbekistan, said that the personal exchanges may only reflect Trump's tendency to engage in hyperbolic name-calling when he feels provoked.
The nastiness of these personal exchanges, well, we know that Trump has long had a penchant for labeling other figures internationally, nationally, in the United States, with colorful names and insulting names, right? And we know that Trump doesn't like to give someone else the last word. And Zelensky, who's really fast on his feet, is also used to not being insulted or in some way attacked without responding. And in the case of Trump, that just makes him madder, and his rhetoric becomes more hyperbolic.
And what is damaging, however, are calls by Trump for elections in Ukraine, something that is not permitted by Ukraine's constitution and something none of the opposition parties want.
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating.
This is not the most colorful but it is probably the most damaging thing that the Trump team has said. Because no one in Ukraine, none of the opposition leaders want elections. By Ukraine's constitution, you can't have elections in wartime. The international IFES, which is the International Agency regarding election integrity, says having an election in Ukraine during wartime is nuts. You know, he said, I don't know, 8 or 10 weeks ago, I'm not going to throw Ukraine to the wolves. Now, that doesn't mean he won't, but I think we've seen a pretty clear indication over the months, ever since Trump okayed the aid package to Ukraine in April of last year, that is not Trump's intention. Now, he's mercurial. He could change his mind. I think there are people around him who don't understand how important it is to American interest that Putin not win his war in Ukraine and take over the country effectively, which is what would happen if we simply stopped aid to Ukraine. But Trump, I think, understands that it would be very bad for the United States and very bad for him personally if he brokered a deal which allowed Putin ultimately to take control of the country. So I think the best news of the past 7 days has been the sudden attention of major European nations to need to put together that peacekeeping force that Trump talks about. Trump was pleased by the fact that you had these 2 meetings now in Western Europe to make progress on this, but this issue was nowhere 2 weeks ago. And now it is somewhere. I mean, obviously it's just a start, but it's a very good start.
U.S. President Donald Trump has shared that Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to visit the United States, though no specific date has been set. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, Trump mentioned the possibility of a new trade deal with China, emphasizing the importance of direct discussions with President Xi.
I have a very good relationship with President Xi. I think a great relationship with President Xi. But remember, he loves China, and I love the USA. So, you know, right there's a little bit of competitiveness. But the relationship I have with President Xi is, I would say, a great one. It was obviously hurt by COVID coming in. It hurt them, hurt us, hurt everybody, hurt the whole world. But outside of that, I have a very, very good relationship with President Xi. Are you looking to I think he's a very unique person.
Now, the two leaders have maintained communication since Trump's inauguration on January 20, engaging in conversations covering topics such as trade, the social media platform TikTok, and the status of Taiwan.
Would you make a new trade deal with China? I mean, you know,
it's possible.
One trade deal never really got...
It's possible. Well, we did a great trade deal with China. We did it great for the farmers, great for manufacturers. They had to buy $50 billion worth of our product, and we were making them buy it. The problem is that Biden didn't push them to adhere to it.
Now, in their most recent call, President Trump and President Xi discussed the future of TikTok following a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that requires the app's Chinese owner, ByteDance, to sell the platform due to national security concerns.
TikTok deal, any developments there?
No, there's a lot of people interested in TikTok, and I think we have a chance of doing something good. And we'll be speaking to China about that also, because they're a party to it, obviously. But it would be great to keep TikTok alive, sell it to somebody that's going to do a great job with it.
Support from U.S. President Donald Trump's administration for Taiwan remains very strong, and Taiwan is looking at more purchases from the country, including LNG to help balance trade. This, according to a senior Taiwan security official today. Now, Trump has repeatedly criticized Taiwan for taking U.S. semiconductor business, saying he wants the industry to rebase to the United States. He's also threatened broad import tariffs on countries which have unbalanced trade with the U.S., which could affect Taiwan given the large trade surplus it runs. Now, speaking at the Halifax International Security Forum in Taipei, Joseph Wu, head of Taiwan's National Security Council, said that the island had many friends in the new administration, especially in the security and defense apparatus.
The United States has been very helpful, providing us with defensive articles and help train our soldiers, and also try to bring us more to the international community. I would say in the last few years, our relationship with the like-minded partners have been increasing, and that is because of the U.S. government. And I see that trend remains. Our support in the Congress, our support from those people who might be, who were already nominated or who will be nominated and served in the administration will still be there. So I think the Trump administration's support for Taiwan will remain very strong.
Now, asked about Trump's comments on chips, Wu said that Taiwan's TSMC, the dominant maker of advanced semiconductors, started from scratch.
They took the business away. Taiwan took our chip business away. We had Intel, we had these great companies that did so well, and it was taken from us, and we want that business back.
That if you look at the TSMC, they started from scratch. There was some help from the international community, of course, but they continue to excel themselves. We did not steal anything from anybody. And Taiwan has been very honest in doing business with the international community.
Taiwan runs a large trade surplus with the U.S., which surged 83% last year, with the island's exports to the U.S. hitting a record $111.4 billion, driven by demand for high-tech products such as semiconductors. Liquefied natural gas, or LNG, is one area the government is already considering, especially from Alaska.
And if Alaska starts producing LNG in big numbers, that will be a very good time for us to buy more. And we are in discussion with Alaska now.
Wu said U.S. LNG was very high quality, but coming from existing suppliers, Texas and Louisiana, it took longer to reach Taiwan, given it had to go via the Panama Canal. In other news tonight, today, Israel is mourning as Hamas has returned the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages, including 33-year-old Sherry Bibas and her 2 young sons, 9-month-old Kifir and 4-year-old Ariel. The Bibas family was among those abducted during the October 7, 2023 attack on kibbutz near Oz. Now, their remains were handed over as part of a ceasefire agreement facilitated by international mediators. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation, stating this:
"Tomorrow will be a very difficult day for the state of Israel. A shocking day, a day of grief. We're bringing home 4 of our favorite hostages, fallen hostages. We hug the families, and the heart of an entire nation is torn. My heart is torn. Yours too. And the heart of the whole world needs to break, because here we see who we are dealing with. What we are dealing with, what monsters. We are grieving, we are in pain, but we are also determined to ensure that something like this does not happen again."
The handover occurred in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, where Red Cross vehicles received the coffins, each bearing a photo of the deceased. The Bibas family had been held captive since the October 7 attack. Hamas previously claimed they were killed in an Israeli airstrike, but this was not confirmed by Israeli authorities. Now, this event underscores the ongoing complexities and deep emotional toll of the conflict, even amid ceasefire agreements.
This is probably the saddest day since October 7. On the other hand, I'm happy that the families has a relief that their loved ones are back.
Today is going to be a very sad day to the state of Israel because we had a lot of casualties. The Hamas raped, burned, killed, massacred a lot of women, men, and children in October 7th, 23. But we knew about those hostages, the Bibas family. We saw them being taken alive and captured by the Hamas. And the lies that they're trying to spread around the world today, that supposedly they died because Israeli bombed in Gaza and they got killed. It's the biggest lie. They just massacred and murdered those people. There's no mercy with those people.
Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian addressed the recent incident in Toronto where a regional jet flipped upon landing. Speaking on CBS Mornings, Bastian emphasized that the pilots were seasoned and well-versed in winter operations. Now, he described the accident footage as horrifying, but commended the crew's swift evacuation efforts, noting this is what we train for continuously. The crash, which occurred amid high winds and freezing temperatures, resulted in 21 injuries among the 80 passengers and crew on board. Fortunately, all are expected to recover. Delta is offering $30,000 in goodwill payments to each passenger, ensuring this gesture doesn't affect their legal rights. Investigations are underway, with black box data being analyzed to determine the cause of the accident.
Other duties we'll be conducting here on site are examining the wreckage, examining the runway. We've already removed the cockpit voice recorder, the flight data recorder, and we've sent them to our lab for further analysis. At this point, it's far too early to say what the cause of this accident might be. However, we will share more information once we're able to.
A top seismologist who has been following the tremors on the popular tourism island of Santorini said that the seismic activity was gradually diminishing.
In the current phase, 19 days after the beginning of the activity, we believe the seismic activity is gradually diminishing. The earthquakes have a smaller size and are more sparse. And of course, there is no connection between the volcanic activity and the seismic activity. We believe that the phenomena will continue for a short period of time and will return to normal levels.
Thousands of earthquakes measuring up to 5.3 magnitude have been recorded in the Aegean Sea off Santorini since February 1, prompting authorities to declare it in a state of emergency for at least a month. More than 11,000 people, among those many seasonal workers, have fled. Geology professor Efthymios Lekas, who is also the head of Greece's Earthquake Planning and Protection Organization, or EPO, also said there is no chance of a volcanic explosion. The seismic activity isn't connected with the volcanic activity.
There is no chance of an explosion of the volcano. For the volcano to erupt, it requires several years, intense pre-volcanic activity, and then to reach an explosive activity, which it won't arrive. It may not arrive because the whole volcanic activity will fade out before any major volcanic explosion occurs.
Lekas said he believed the tremors will continue for a short period of time before returning to normal levels. Additional seismographs have been installed on the volcanic islet of Nea Kameni in the flooded Santorini caldera after tens of thousands of earthquakes have struck the area since January. The seismographs are expected to measure the impact of the recent seismic activity on the small uninhabited islet and its craters, part of Santorini's chain of islands created by volcanoes. And tonight, we bring you a harrowing account of human trafficking victims who escaped brutal conditions in Myanmar's scam compounds. Now, these individuals, lured by false job promises, endured severe torture and coercion.
I asked one of my colleagues from this place, what happened there? What is the job? And he was told me about the punch, electric shock. And same at night, I informed to them I want to go back to my country. I don't want to work. So we are not scammers. We are victim. They use us. And if somebody don't want to work with them, they are in Myanmar, they say, in Chinese say, they are one of biggest market, the place. Here they're selling the organ, human organ, kidney, eye, like this. They are warning us, if you are not working with us, we can do it with your body.
I get a lot of punishment, like I receive shock, electric shock every day. I receive punch every day. Like nothing. They just want to punish us, and they punish us because like we were working for 18 hours without salary, without like they didn't allow us to contact our family.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. Scientists are closely monitoring an asteroid that has a small but notable chance of striking Earth in 2032. The European Space Agency and other organizations are now enlisting the James Webb Space Telescope to better understand this potential threat, known as 2024 YR4.
2024 YR4 is an asteroid that was discovered on the 27th of December of the last year. And along the month of January of the present year, we've been collecting many more observations that have allowed us to constrain the orbit of this object. And as we were gathering all those observations, we quickly saw that the chances of this object impacting the Earth on the 22nd of December 2032 were rising little by little, to the point that by the 27th of January, the impact probabilities for this object rose above a threshold that we have agreed internationally, which is the 1% impact probability, which is a threshold that let's say tells us that we have to put a special care, more care on this object. So we have to request observations from other telescopes, actually request a time, in this case, for example, for James Webb on space telescopes, in order to ascertain with the highest possible accuracy what is the situation with regards to this object and with regards to the possibilities of impacting the Earth.
The asteroid, first spotted by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS telescope in Chile, is currently moving away from Earth but will return in 2028, estimated to be between 40 meters or 131 feet and 90 meters or 295 feet across. It's traveling at approximately 15 times the speed of a high-velocity bullet.
If we speak of a Tunguska case, event case, in the case it was around 50 meters. If it was 90 meters, we would be easily speaking of 10 times the effect of the Tunguska event back in 1908. We are still having a 98% of probabilities of not impacting. So I'd say that people should not be very much worried. Again, as I said probably at that time, this is a warning for us as scientists and researchers that we should put a lot of attention on this subject in order to gather as many observations as possible in order to ascertain the trajectory of this object with the highest accuracy possible.
Referring to the 1908 incident when an asteroid or comet explosion leveled 80 million trees across 830 square miles in Siberia. And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thanks for joining us. Good night.